and let's get the show ready. So, Jace, how do you feel about this topic that we just covered in the first week, grounding in feelings?
Oh, feels more like crash landing. I
Yeah,
don't know if people resonate. It's
I
pretty
think so.
intense. I think the first week was pretty intense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think some of us are also mentioning about difficult emotions coming up in the set. Could be quite surprising, or yeah, just like the total workload that could feel like a lot has been happening. Quite intense, even though before this we may have been practicing every day, has been quite consistent, and so on and so forth. But yeah, this can be still intense.
Yeah. Like there's just a lot of tiredness, I think, for me.
Mm,
Uh I mean, even though it's just pretty fundamental, like the instructions are pretty fundamental, and uh, I think it's just this facing like a lot of exposure of the rawness of where we are at. I think
mm,
that's like pretty intense. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think like essentially, if we really boil down the main topic of the week, it may be something like this. So essentially, we repeatedly through 5 days of training talk about how do we really like locate this so-called present moment. Like so many materials, teachings, and our own journey coming to this point to figure out that particular special moment, so-called present moment. And what does that mean? And we becoming increasingly more specific about it. Because some people could say the present moment is a type of state that you feel relaxed, joyful, blissed out, and so on and so forth. Or present moment is the absence of the mental proliferation, the mental chattering, just so many different types of description about this, right? But it could be crucial because then what would be the orientation or what would be the goal of each of the sit if we're not clear about this?
Yeah.
So I believe then we mentioned some of the three keywords to kind of locate and pinpoint this in a much more precise manner. That is starting with feelings. Then we talk about contact. And then at the later days, I believe we are actually opening into also sense gates.
Mm. I think it makes a lot of sense to be able to break down like that. I think a lot of times when we talk about the present moment, it just sounds um like modern new age like hippie thing that you just
Mm,
as long as you just pay attention or just slow down or pause, you know, and then you're in touch. There's just a lot of like vague words about it. But if you actually see like these three words that you actually pin down, then you could also see like why maybe this week actually felt so intense or it actually felt like a crash landing. Because I think there's a lot of build up before the official week one start. I mean, we have like a pretty
mm,
intense special transmission in Mackinac.
yeah.
And then before that, we actually also have demo week. I think there was building up a lot of anticipation and like,
Mm,
oh yes, like, I'm all ready for this. And just imagine like all this excitement, anticipation, intensity, and then suddenly like sitting down, like, oh, let's contact. Like everything just boom.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Then essentially the invitation at first is, yeah, come and feel what you feel. So then all the sense of pent up excitement, when you were saying, or the anticipation, and now you feel that rushing of maybe anxiety even, like
Mm,
that rushing of, or the maybe other case is that I know some of us has been mentioning about how we like community. Some of us is like these kind of discussion. It could be one of the first time that we share about meditation experience. Yeah, and
Yeah.
feel all of that kind of like just new way of showing up, new way of presenting yourself, and all of that could be all these feelings that you are asked to now embody. Yeah. So really, I think this present moment of this grounding and feeling is this first week is the invitation to be ever more embodied in your direct experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then this sense of being embodied, making contact in that way, is not about getting to any particular state, but just to stay embodied in whatever that you are feeling, experiencing right now.
Mm.
Yeah.
I have another thought that I don't know if it's like relevant or because I feel like in this boot camp we actually also did a lot of I think we do way better in relating and in coordinating like how everybody like warm up to meeting each other and
Mm.
how like we're in connection with each other. And versus I think the previous boot camps, I think even the first week we might be we're just still practicing in this confine of like that the sense of self
Yeah.
is still really strong. And then, given that first we are like contacting, but now we're also open to contacting with a whole group of like,
Yeah.
pretty much sensitive people. Can imagine it swimming of all their emotions and feelings and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think that a lot of us either haven't really worked with transmission before or even like haven't done that much of guided, so-called guided meditation.
Yeah.
Previously, we were doing our own practice, have a lot of sense of control, and now we are kind of thrown in a situation where a lot of things is unknown and a lot of things just out of our control. How do you feel that you're put into that situation? Do you tighten up? And then do you notice all that responses? Yeah. So I think similar to how we are in a lot of discussion, we was asking ourselves to reflect the difference between what is the feeling and then what is emotional state. Do we tell the difference between this overall uh, feeling and not even only qualia, not even only qualitative experience? Because what if we feel totality of what's going on without even kind of pinning or reducing it down to just like, oh, I'm just tired. This is the sensation of tiredness. Or what about the total experience of it all? What if you can even broaden that up and, like we're saying, staying open, right?
Yeah.
Having an openness to the present moment. Yeah. And I guess in some ways, like, mm, I don't know what you make of it, Chase, but Mei Chang in day 5 mentioning about like actually if we just hit this, if we just route through this grounding a present moment through like 8 weeks, 10 weeks, it will be accomplishing a lot. Just like just sitting down and just feeling what we're feeling and just routing through, purifying all these things. And there'll be a lot of accomplishment, but most likely that will be unrealistic because the survivability of that type of practices is low. Because understandably, like you probably just don't want to sit down and just again and again feel what you feel, feel what you feel, feel what you feel, and it just stay there. It's actually a very tall
Well, but
order
for a
to
lot of
ask.
traditions, that's what we do. We just keep doing it again, 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 again.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess that's why like in a specific confinement of disciplining ourselves to sit down and anchor ourselves like that is reasonable, right? But we also have families to take care of, jobs to attend to, different responsibilities, so on and so forth. Yeah. So then now we are also opening ourselves to not just a sit, but also take these maneuvers into real life. And I believe some of us are already starting to do that.
Yeah.
Starting to notice like, okay, I'm contracted in a sit, but wait a minute, I'm also contracted like this at work. And we're starting to see how there's a lifestyle that we're living that generate meditative challenge. And as we solve meditative obstacles, it becomes a potential different maneuvers in our life. Like so, all of these sense gates that we actually open the channels through the meditation can now also be integrated into our life, like different ways we relate to our own moment-to-moment experience.
Mm. This is really building like a new, I mean, it's a new habit, but at the same time, it is just, I mean, I think this word is kind of overused this week. It's like we have just beginning to know what is going on so that you can stop gaslighting yourself moment to moment in daily life. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Starting to see that, oh yeah, I'm not the crazy one. Everybody is just disassociated,
Yeah.
for the most part. Yeah. And I believe that takes us to the next point, which is these things are pretty clear and simple to get. How come it's so maybe difficult to consistently target, make maneuvers, and route here? So I believe that maybe we are constantly living in a state of fragmentation. Because if we sit down and we see that it's all these conflicting or this split apart, different versions, different aggregations, just constantly doing that. And of
They
course,
always have
it's
the most
challenging.
like interesting visuals and appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's a tanka, I've been told.
Mm.
Yeah, and then like this is the reality of a lot of us, of pretty much everybody, right? Like we have all these different mode, different version of ourselves that we snap on, blah, 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 blah. But there's not never really like an invitation to feel all of them. Like not for, okay, I want the calm state to be the top dog, so let me just try to be calm and forget everything else. You guys listen to the calm one now. Or when we are at work, like, okay, the focus one, where's the focus one? Right, you be the leader. Everybody listen to the focus one. We got to stay focused. But in this invitation that Mei Chang is taking us through in the first week is essentially what if you feel exactly what you've always been feeling? Don't try to fix it or change it. And what happens? Yeah,
I guess for some, it can feel overwhelming.
yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, even just realizing that, there are things that there's so many things that you're not seeing like daily, or just using such a simple maneuver that, it's it can create some kind of ontological shock, even, I think.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's what you were saying about crash landing could be resonant to a lot of us because when we start to feel all these different ways that we are being distracted, pulled this part, pushed to this part, and we will come to try to like, okay, just feel what you feel, then we just feel anxiety, restlessness, tension, contraction, impatient,
Pain.
pain, yeah, just physical pain as well.
Mm.
Actually feel all this torment, all these pieces. We can instinctively try to put it all together, hold it all together. And then we see that, oh, that's also part of the fragmentation, resisting the resistance in that way. Yeah, so it makes sense why, as we are open these cans of worms, could be a lot of challenging, surprisingly challenging responses to this such a simple, such a seemingly harmless invitation. Just be who you are. Just feel what you feel. And own the pent up or own the unaccounted for, unprocessed feelings and emotions arise to the surface. And then can you have the stability to just be with it? Yeah, I think that's why it could be scary. But then if we are aware this is a reality of my current level of fitness, then the next couple of weeks we can more map out, okay, there's going to be a trajectories and I want to be working on this for quite a while. And then we can actually see how our lifestyle contribute or is very much this fragmentation. We have different versions of ourselves that don't talk to each other. And we're trying to find which one is the real one, which one is the real me, and just switch between them. Yeah.
I
So
don't have
then,
much to say about that. Yeah.
uh-huh.
No, because I'm just thinking about that question, like, who's the real me? Feel like that 100 versions are popping up at once.
Yeah. So then what do we do about this, right? So what are we practicing here? What do we do about this? So I think we are starting with very, very fundamental. Like this time, we talk about posture. We talk about how you showing up and actually like the way that your physical embodiment, what kind of posture are you taking into that can support you or not support you, collapse you, make you collapse under 90 minutes of feeling what you feel. Yeah, it could be a lot. So we talk about inner posture as well, which is very much like a sense of the attitude, the mindset. What kind of mindset are you bringing to this? And so far, I think I've noticed a lot of this like earnestness or this. I think Mei Chang also mentioned a couple of times about like there's very strong aspiration with our group,
Mm.
the willingness
Yeah, I can
to
feel it too.
yeah, the willingness to actually do the work and learn and explore, especially for coming also from people who's been doing this for a while. But you guys are also showing up in a way of, okay, let me clean my slate, let me be open and really trying to start from the beginning. And I believe that that attitude is that kind of inner posture that can actually make us receptive to the teaching, to the transmission, and all that. Yeah. So this posture and attitude, like we also talk a little bit about that in the public practice week day 1, is really the foundation of how we even show up. Posture is also inclusive of the breathing posture, breathing posture, the breath, the posture of the breath, the posture of how you hold your hand, how you place, put a certain placement between your palms and your thighs and all that. Just really finding what works for you.
The sense of openness, I think.
Mm.
Mm. I find it quite
Yeah.
interesting about the attitude thing because you were saying like, how this group, it feels like the aspiration is really strong. And I was just sensing it in contrast to, at least how I felt. Or I think that maybe some of you could also resonate is that sometimes is that you have that aspiration, but like you're not clear about what you're looking for. And so that attitude becomes like a little bit foggy in that way. And but
Mm.
over here, I also sense a lot of people where like the aspiration is strong and it almost feels like I want to know this. That's like a pointing to like I want to know this and this and this kind of thing, like a very specific kind of a pointed one pointed kind of a almost like goal or aim in a sense.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah. And sometimes that could be somewhat unconscious, right? Like we don't
Yeah,
even know how narrow our attention is, which I
yeah.
think comes to the next thing that we're starting to point out to each other. What kind of baggage are you bringing to the table, man? Like, are you aware of your baggage? And what is your intention? And we may not know that, oh, your intention is just to be blissful, which is fine, but we may not know that is our intention. But everything about the way we contextualize the sit, good sit, bad sit, time wasting, oh, very productive, is based on these baggage of intention. And understandably also, like we say, oh, why am I just being dull or like being dull throughout the entire sit? Because yeah, understandably, we also carry a certain type of baggage that makes it very hard. And we have to work on that baggage. And the intention and the baggage is part of this becoming aware of what's going on. Now we have intention. We have a certain direction we want to go to. And sometimes that intention could be misguided because of our wrong view.
Mm.
So then, like Jace, I think you were just saying, then we can examine, like, wait a minute, even if I get that answer about this specific thing, would that actually fundamentally solve the bigger problem of suffering and separation? It may not.
Yeah. I mean, whether you had the right question in the first place and the kind of the boxes that you have placed around your question.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's this much more obvious is the posture and the attitude. Maybe
Mm.
less so obvious is the baggage and intention. Like that baggage could be the way you, yeah, only stuff that you need to purify.
So I guess what you could be very clear about is somewhat like your posture and your attitude. And what you can, be open to uncovering is like your baggage and well, the intentions. I think there will be like those that you can, and then there'll be those that you probably realize that you didn't know that you have. Yeah. So
Because the intention could be the other side too, right? Which is like, oh, you actually don't know. You previously you haven't uncovered how much you really like this.
you're talking about me or
In general.
in general.
Yeah. How much you actually really enjoy this. Like new appetite.
Mm. And I
Oh, I
never
actually
realized
really
how
enjoy
much I
this.
enjoy sufferings. Yeah.
Yeah, because the first four boxes like this is informs every single one of the sit, right? Every single one moments how we come here. Maybe if we don't have the attitude that doesn't matter that much, we won't even show up to this conversation. You wouldn't join this call. Yeah, things like that. Or the way that you have your baggage and the way you hold your intention informs and drives the way you engage with this presentation. It's always on. Always there's some sort of baggage and intention that's going on. Yeah. So then if we understand this, all these fragmentations and all these kind of settings that we can set up, so we'll be primed to go. The next thing is really like this apply and sustain. Applying our attention, and then can we sustain it? Yeah. Then we see that, okay, which posture, attitude, baggage, intention works or doesn't work is then how well can you apply, like intend to a certain direction, and then just keep going in that way without being super distracted or mental proliferation, in all that way. Then you can see whether the type of setup that you are carrying around can actually help you break through and steadily move beyond your current limitation, or it doesn't. It could be very simple. You still get stuck.
I mean, for the very first week, it could just be a simple thing of just noticing what your fitness is and actually stop being in denial of what your fitness level is as well. I think a lot of us sometimes is like either we overestimate or underestimate and not be able to just see things as what they are or where they are in that way.
Yeah. So I think then the point of these trainings in our absorptive capacity and capabilities is then to see how you can apply and sustain your intention, and then to take you to the place that you can notice your patterns, like you just say, your
Yeah.
fitness, or the characteristic of phenomena, be it impermanence. You're starting to see that, oh, okay, it arises, it passes. You start to notice the tension, the dissatisfactoriness of phenomena, of how it just always leave you hanging in that way, of dukkha. And even when I think yesterday discussion too, we were just talking with James about he had a very strong absorption into the senses. Then okay, in those experience, where's the self? Where's the sense of self? And it's kind of like, oh yeah, there wasn't. So then how come now there's a sense of self? How does that process happen? But we may not able to sustain our meditative equipoise all the way from those kind of freed up state to a contracted state. Because if we can notice that and sustain that ongoing recognition, then we notice how that process happens. And we don't even bother by the fact that we contracted. We're just like, oh, it's just a new set of condition. Of course I'm like this. Fundamentally, the sense of being entrapped into a kind of close-up channel, being stuck in the head, stuck in the body, it's fine. That's just my life right now. And based on the condition, sure, I can do something about it so that my life would allow me to be more spacious if I want, but it's not like fundamentally a problem to be contracted. If we can notice that transitory uh, characteristic. So I think that these kind of structures, like from the fragmentation to noticing our posture, that helps support us for each and every sit, noticing our attitude, choosing and intending certain attitude so that we be more receptive or more, so the sit is more conducive, and also starting to uncover, like Jay is saying, about our baggages, our intention, and then apply sustain whatever that level is right now for us in certain direction, and then start to notice what's going on, the ways that is. And as we do this, I believe we would cycle through different steps and states of absorption. Sure, we'll start with the contact to attend to what exactly is going on. And as we do that, just a natural next step is to reassociate, leaning into intimacy with sensation and feelings. Now, at this point, like some of us, a certain state, right, already feel difficulties because we don't want to associate with those sensations and those feelings. So we don't lean in. Matter of fact, we stay away from that. So Albert, I know like in 7B has multiple speech and breakdown, like the necessity of taking your suffering seriously, or like actually see how you don't want to lean into those sensations. You don't want to respond. You don't want to associate with that. Right? But if we do, can lean into intimacy with sensation, okay, now comes the challenging part of can you staying with the wax and wane of experiences as they amplify? Because now you have to process what you previously didn't want to process. Like you face what you previously avoided. So there's this amplification process that now you gotta be with. Right? And then as you stay with that, can you find the kind of the cut or the release? As you unclench, you self-regulate from whatever techniques or methods, right? For stability while sustaining that intent. Because it could be the case that as the amplification goes up, you release on the gas, sure. You stop feeling that intensity, but you also lost the plot. You didn't finish the condition because you self-regulate for stability, but you drop the intent. You will previously want to explore how you are having pent-up aggression, anger, or something like that. And when it feels like, okay, being with anger, the sense of experience starting to shift into that. But then when you're like, okay, it's getting to just that point of amplification, now release. And then it's like lost in thought for a few minutes and then you're back. So the sustaining of the intent is crucial as well, because otherwise we'll just be back to step number one. But if we can make that contact, stay with it, regulate so that it can hold itself and continue until it's reached the point of pacification, then we can notice that routing works. See completely of like, oh, the obstacle removes itself by this point. And then back to another cycle. And a lot of times we'll just stuck with step 1 and 2 if the feelings that we are invited to sit with is just so gnarly, we don't want to associate with it, which is understandable.
I
So we
mean,
may not even.
there's also mentioning of like, how people notice that maybe there's some numbness or like dissociation that they're habitually caught in. So it's like you might not even be able to feel something or feel anything. And I think Taylor said something along the line like, what you can't feel is basically what you don't want to feel. It's, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think just even leaning in close to that sense of especially if you feel like you have dissociated for quite a while, it actually might just feel like a lot of blackouts, I feel. And just being able to kind of just lean in and press on, even though it just feels like you keep blacking out, it's also contact in that way.
Yeah. There could be a lot of blacking out in the case of like we just aren't able to be there with those emotions, even if we intend and we sincerely are leaning in, but maybe it will take a while before we even have enough intimacy with that so that there could be lucidity. It could be territories of our cognition that just there's no cognition, there's no remembrance. Like some of us, when we ask in the discussion, hey, what's your routing? Like we don't remember any routing, any maneuvers. You just kind of something happened and then something happened and then something happened. We forget our own journey. Yeah, we forget the decisions or the responses that was um, made to maneuver, to navigate, and we just remember the kind of like patches of flavors. Yeah, so why was there patches of flavors? Well, perhaps in the middle of it, they're just blacking out. Or the capacity to retain lucidity was so low that we need to work on it for a while. Yeah. Or there could be association, but then we don't have that kind of capacity to breathe into it. Breathe is one of the method, one technique, but like that sense of like staying with it through the wax and wane, staying with it as it amplifying. And then we just have it like, oh, I'm staying in ordinary and it's kind of nothing's happening. Like it doesn't have the kind of energy vault that you turn up that can stay with it. And that amplification, that leaning in uh, through the impermanence, through the shape shifting of that condition is I find something that could be quite challenging as we practice absorption.
I mean, for a lot of people, it might, that contact or that reassociation could even just be as simple as just contacting the impatience, like contacting the the sense that, I don't seem to be getting anywhere, like the doubt and the confusion.
Yeah, confusion. Yeah, so it's like we could be contacting what's going on, and then Mei Chang is giving a speech. We don't understand that. So then there's a sensations, or there's a conceptualization of I don't understand anything. What's going on? I thought I know it. Then the confusion, we can't lean into it to feel what it feels like to be confused. So the confusion is just stay there, direct the show, take over, and now you're just stuck in confusion.
Or you feel like there's something to feel beyond that confusion when you could just be in contact with the confusion. Yeah.
Or the other case is like some of us are really good at amplification, but then you do not release it. So you just, oh, blissing out. Oh man, Sid is so good. You don't see that you are just generating another point of reference compared to the first one, and you just do that again and again without closing the cycle, without finishing the loop. Yeah, we're just stuck at amplification. Just everything has to be intense. Every sit to be intense in that way. Yeah, or if we can release that intense, but we drop the intent, we can release that intensity, but we drop the intention. So we don't gain any insight. We just feel good. It just feels good. You just got a state and it feels good. Or it feels special. Yeah. So I believe these cycles of absorption would be something maybe in later in the discussion room where we split it out and we have more discussion, could be something we talk about. But okay, so if this is the cycles that we experience multiple times in a sit, in the warm up, in the main portion of the sit, and in the cool down, what gets in the way, right? I think some of us has been discussing all this, like if this sounds quite straightforward, pretty simple, what gets in the way? So yeah, it's the hindrances. So I believe right now we are not at the point yet to like say things like paying homage to our affliction. It's just very simple. Like, can we navigate and clear the hindrances? Can we move beyond these obstacles? It's very simple. When like the strong aversion, don't want to be here, arise, can you move beyond it? Like, no, I don't even want to move beyond it. Okay, so then you don't move beyond it. Or slot and topper of like, oh my God, I just don't have energy. Well, yeah, then can we put an intention to feel what it feels like to be dull? And from that condition of being dulled out of your mind, slowly build up the energy. So you can feel like what it feels, so you can feel exactly what it's like to generate intention, to generate energy. Or doubt, like just the obstacle of doubt. I don't understand what's going on. This is not like what I've experienced before. What's this about? Or some of these could be energetic in a way. It's just restlessness. We just twist and turn. And then we may not see that, wait a minute, I don't even see this twist and turn as a problem. Or like I may see this twist and turn as a sign of progress. So I'm just looking for twists and turns. Just all these like, oh, what is even our view of the obstacles? Because some of us could take the medicine to be the end, and then we become addicts. But some of us can also take obstacle to be the fruit, and then we're confused. Like, oh, if it's blissed out real well, then like I'm doing it right. Well, maybe not. And all of these can be very, very contextual and personal, right? We have our combination of these different obstacles that show up throughout our life, in one set, in 1 week, moment to moment, combination of different ways. So then I believe in this way it comes together. That's why we talk about maneuvers and routing, because essentially, as we traverse these contemplative practices together, is kind of like clearing on an obstacle course. Like literally like clearing an obstacle course. Like you just can't get past that hula hoop, or you just can't slide. You can't do front row. You can't balance on the beams. So it would just be different. Like, oh, just when confusion comes, I don't know how to get past this. Okay, so then we talk about maneuvers and routings so that we can clear the obstacles again and again and again and again. So then we can graduate to the next set of obstacle. So then our meditative journey when we do training law, it could be, oh, I'm just building up my understanding of my own set of obstacles. I have these problems. We don't have to pretend that we don't have problems. We become ever more intimate with what are the obstacle cores that I'm working through right now. What maneuvers have I been experimenting with? How well it works, how well it doesn't work, and then what is the routing that collectively we are doing it together.
I think it's worth like mentioning like how easy it is for us to fall into that space of wanting to fix. And I think that people would really because I think people get confused very easily. Like, oh, isn't this maneuvers and routings allowing me to fix like, whatever hindrance that I'm experiencing?
Right.
But so like if we actually look at this obstacle course right here, is that people would think that, oh, the start and the ending is actually what's important. That's what our usual like conditioning is, right? But in fact, it's more like, oh, I didn't know that actually I could hula hoop. Like all my life, I've just been like, I don't know, I mean, what other ways to do things. But like, all along I walk. I didn't know that I could front row actually to get to that place also. It's just trying to increase almost like the kind of movement that you can do to get through. Or so this is about the navigation in itself, which is I think what we have said before during the week discussion. And yeah, it's just something that we probably have to keep repeating. And I think that a lot of times we still keep falling into that idea that, this is about fixing it. Because like even going beyond the hindrance, it just feels also like I need to fix the hindrance.
Yeah. And I believe the way that we've been doing this is that there's also an extra kind of special flavor that CC is generating, is clearing the obstacles together as well. Because as we share what works for us, we can give that routing to another person. We can share the maneuvers with another person. And that way, we gain efficiency and effectiveness at a much faster rate.
Yeah.
It could be
Yeah,
quite straightforward, but yeah, but we may not
in a
never
way, we are
experience it
also like,
before.
in a way, we are also like amplifying each other's obstacles in a sense. I feel like together as a group. So we actually
Yeah.
see it more clearly, especially in discussions. You realize that a lot of times you're just resonating with each other's sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, because as I was reflecting on the week of like, yeah, it's kind of like just drop in a set of mud filled obstacles course, and every day, every session, you're just like, okay, you got 90 minutes, let's clear this. How much can you clear it? And afterwards, we debrief about it, we share, and then we do it again and again and again. And as we clear the obstacles in the sit, well, we clear the obstacle in life. Yeah. And quite straightforward. But yeah, it's quite fun if we think about it that way. I believe. That kind of exertion of fun.
Yeah, as long as there's no sun.
No sun for the mud to dry.
I hate the sun. I just don't make me see.
Oh,
Like, I'll be like,
you just got way too indoctrinated by Asian beauty standard. Always got to stay out of sun. Yeah, but I believe that's kind of like wrapping up of the week from our perspective, maybe from the team perspective. But let's look a little bit of about the data. So this is how well collectively through all the session, how well did you warm up. I believe this kind of like the numbers. If we don't count the 7 here, which is kind of like a safe number, then predominantly, yeah, 20%, 8, 19%, 9, 8%, 10. So what is that? Almost 50% of us are 8 plus, and the rest are lower than 6, lower or equal to 6. That's our measurement, our own self-reporting measurement of how well did you warm up. And in this way, that's all the maneuvers that you set out to kind of find the posture that works, find the attitude that works, becoming aware of our baggage, and then work based on that baggage and honing in our intention again and again and again and again. Every sit, what am I working on? What am I working on? What am I working on? Yeah. And that's the warm-up portion. When it comes to the lucidity throughout the session, um, once again, I think the numbers right now kind of reflect similar pattern. Also, 20% is 8, 13% is 9, 11% is completely lucid. Wow. Yeah. That's also
yes,
roughly
that's pretty
about,
impressive.
yeah, that's very impressive. I know I fall asleep a couple of times. It's like, man, it's so dull. Yeah, but this is the numbers that we report so far, and then all the other numbers is below that, which is kind of lucidity, I guess. One of the reasons why we uh, aim towards, let's really talk about lucidity, is just so that we can even record and recollect the maneuvers and routing. Otherwise, we don't even have a feedback structure, because then it's just like, I sit down, then something happened. Or like, but like, how did it happen? I don't know. Or just God did. Like, that's our answer. God did. God made them happen. I'm like, okay, but that's not very, like, how are we going to improve that? I don't know. God will do it again. Okay. So we're just being superstitious. Well, of course, there's also maneuvers when it comes to devotions and like trusting and having faith in. But then we may not know how much of a devotee you are with creation. But that's a separate matter. Maybe we can talk more about in the discussion. When it comes to cooling down, this is our number. Once again, similar patterns. 20%, 16, 7 percent that is on the upper range, and the rest is similar. So I don't know, based on these numbers, can we say that the cohort is doing somewhat more on the above average range? It's doing fairly well. I don't know. That's the numbers for now. But yeah. So
I mean,
we
self-assessment as well, right? So it's
yeah.
also more like discovering, like, along the way, like how do you even assess yourself? in the first place. Because
Yeah.
like I said, in the first week, a lot of times it's just even noticing actually how fit am I, or like, what kind of basis have I been measuring myself on? And that actually might take a few weeks to even clarify.
Yeah. So based on the discussions, based on the sharing from you guys, the mentor teams will be working hard to assess what's going on and generate new poll questions every week to kind of like frame our understanding so that we can record and have data to talk again in the weekly debrief. But yeah, that's kind of like a situation. But how about before we break our room, are there any updates from our teachers? Let me stop sharing for a while. Hey Albert, how's it going?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes. And
I
also
mean,
I'd
it's one.
like to invite
Yeah.
Taylor and Frank as well.
All the teachers, yes. It's cool to see your breakdown of these things in like actual words and graphs, visual graphs.
You have no idea. Khan would never use the same slides. Even if we are having the same face and the same theme, he will always have different slides.
Really? I
I
mean,
can't help it.
it's impressive. It's impressive. I mean, it's really, really useful. I mean, I'm a visual learner, so it's like seeing it all. It's like, oh, that's exactly what we're doing. But like now it makes more sense. Um, something we didn't really much, I guess, talk about in 7B was the kind of the release factor, right?
Mm,
We just basically are honing in on basically mindfulness, right? And we don't consider like the fact that you can actually liberate your experience. I think that's a very like very crucial thing, because it just feels like we're just basically looking at our own suffering, being our own suffering, but it's like, is it ever gonna go away? How do I get rid of this
mm,
thing? It's in HD. It's better than HD. It's real life. Um, but how do we actually liberate experience so that we've closed the cycle, so to speak, like you're saying? Hmm. That's fascinating. I don't think we really got into it. I think it was definitely intuited by many people
mm,
insofar as they stayed with their experience and it's like suddenly it like changes and shifts and if they're free for a moment. I think a lot of people express that, but the specific clarity and the mechanism of it and the routing and whatever techniques we do or lack of techniques, I guess it's something I need to work on as an instructor to be more clear about that. And I'm seeing that now. Mm.
mm. That's such an interesting idea, interesting point about like a lot of these moves could be intuitively done, but also the role of our discussion is to make sense of those intuitive moves and then kind of codify it for others people to also develop. Because intuitively
Yeah.
you can do it for yourself, but as we are working together, we also share those intuition. Yeah.
Yeah, and finding a common languaging for fundamentally something that's really difficult to articulate,
Yeah.
right? Right. Very difficult to articulate sensation, difficult to articulate subjective experience. Yet, learning the language of it, learning what the hell even people are talking about, right? Yeah, I think 7B did excellent. I think the whole idea of crash landing, idea of just like this is where we are, this is reality. I think really, I think everyone just felt very real, like, oh, here we are. This is who I am. Maybe almost for
Mm,
the first time in one's life. Maybe for, yeah, I think it's a lot to do that, to make contact. And even if no matter how advanced practitioner you are or seemingly free, it doesn't matter. It's like we all start there, right? We all start at the very beginning of contact. We all can feel, and the implications of that. And yeah, it's pretty profound, I think. It's pretty profound. It's the beginning, but it also could be the end. Ha ha ha. Mm. Anyways, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I can attest to what Upper saying about the maneuvers and stuff like that. It's something that I'm also learning. It's just like teasing out the maneuvers, not just within my own sit, but see if I can tease out the maneuvers of the acolytes sharing. Because I don't think we talked much about that in previous cohort. Like previous cohort would just be like, how'd you sit? Okay, great, blissful, or scary, whatever the case may be. But we never got into the routings. And then I have to also work on the precisions of describing not just my own routings, but helping people teaching other routings. Yeah, and it's interesting because like with meditation, it's so new for people to come to the realization that it could be measured. Yeah, because if you look at like fitness and or like violin, for example, it's just a bunch of maneuvers. And then very meticulously, you have spreadsheets and you write down every maneuver you make during the fitness program. Or like, in violin, you can play the same passage, right? But then there's infinite fingerings with different positions on the fingerboard that you can apply, different bowings. And I used to like just mark all the different maneuvers. And it's like, okay, you make changes, troubleshoot. And then you go, oh, does this maneuver work? If it works, why does it work? If it doesn't work, why doesn't it work? And then can you make a different maneuver, which leads to different routings and different bowings, different routings, different changes the emotional tune and the stories of that particular passage or the interpretation you have of that music. But how does that affect the overall arc of the structure of the entire music? And then fitness is obvious, right? Like I used the example of like counting macros. It's like you have a specific set of macros that you need to target every week, and that changes too, right? But then it's like there's infinite varieties. If you're doing like flexible dieting, there's infinite varieties of food that you can eat to hit that macros. But then you have to like just really practice honing down your basics in terms of like, okay, what kind of maneuvers am I doing to lead to what kind of routings in order to for the whatever endeavor that you're doing to become intuitive. It's like now I can just intuitively eat and then I can stay pretty much on track with my macros. But that took like years of practicing, like just position, like going with my fitness pouch. It's like, oh, exactly what, how much macros, how much carbs, fat, and proteins is in each food. And like, if you want to hit a 500-pound squat, that's all people talk about is the routings and maneuvers to get that squat. Because the goal is clear. If the goal is like self-emptiness or nature of mind, it's clear. If you just point it out to you, but then how do you keep going back there and through different maneuvers? And then that leads to life too, because if you look at life, it's just a bunch of different, it's just a collection of maneuvers and routings and decisions, right? As a concept, if you sit down and to meditate in like an hour sit, maybe there's like 30 to 50 different decisions that you have to make. But just the way we're programmed to do meditation is we're completely unaware of the maneuvers that we're making. And that's something that it's I guess new for me to really also like tease out like the routing, so especially like the jhanas and the higher bhumis, instead of just using like vague language, stuff like that.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's why Han's uh, representation of an obstacle course is a pretty good one, because that obstacle course is life, right? And most of our routings and maneuvers, the way we move through life, is just pre-described or reactive. The directionality, the way in which we're oriented, and how we then move through life given that orientation. So the hindrances that come up are just the ways in which we relate to these various obstacles, which are just points in life that often we're relating to in our unskillfulness in how we navigate them. And what we're doing is by talking about our routings, by sharing about these things, we're expanding the ways in which we can engage life, not being stuck in the same sequencing to get from point A to point B in the obstacle course, for example, and refining our flexibility and adaptability. And I think that's a big part of what we mean by routings and maneuvers. I think we talked about it a little bit in discussion one and discussion twos, maybe Thursday or Wednesday, that routing is just this process of directing the flow of our experience through various channels, whether it's intention or a shift in perspective or a broadening of the context of the view, so that the way experience unfolds can take on a new trajectory, and not in a controlled egoic sense, but in a way where we're steering energy and which tendencies are reinforced or what opens up. And the maneuvers are just the small adjustments that support that intended path or route of travel. So relaxing into the breath, or shifting our attention from content to context, or from context to content, depending on the situation, or opening instead of contracting, or contracting instead of opening if we want to stir concentration, something like that. And so I think we brought up some various examples. I forget, somebody was sharing about some pain that they've been experiencing lately. And so like one maneuver with that pain could be, instead of resisting, you just soften, and the pain gets routed into impermanence rather than aversion. Or if, we talk a lot about pain, but even if there's bliss or pleasant feelings, you you can savor that. You can pause and savor that without clinging to it, and that's a maneuver. And so the joy is routed into appreciation or generosity, right? The whole meta, rather than craving or possessiveness. But we have to, with this, what is it called? The applied and sustained concentration, right? Like we do a lot of our quiver, or our bandwidth of maneuvers is quite limited and reactive and unconscious. So there's a process of really coming into contact and being with all the pain and discomfort, so we can even see the ways in which we are just reactively moving before we can, as those conditions start to recondition ourselves. Something like that. Yeah.
It's really like increasing like the resolution of your attention as well. Because I mean, even just Frank saying that you make about 30 to 50 decisions, but for most of us, I think when we sit, we are like, I thought I'm just making one decision and I keep coming back to the contact. But even that felt so hard because we don't even notice that actually there's so many choices in between that we have to make. And we're not like having that level of resolution in our attention to see that there is so many little things that actually is distracting us from that one decision in the first place.
Yeah, there's also like maneuvers within maneuvers. It's like, I used an example of like in a Vipassana. I was talking about how instead of looking at practices like techniques based, it was like this technique, that technique, which can seem really categorically distinct, just replace the word technique with maneuvers. And you see that way the difference between like Vipassana and do nothing meditation and like TWIM, it's actually just different in maneuvers. So if you go to Vipassana retreat, they just give you one maneuver. Just scan your body from head to toe for like 10 days for 12 hours, or from toe to the head, if you count that as another maneuver. But it's basically just one maneuver. But even within that one maneuver, there are maneuvers within that maneuver in which you can troubleshoot. Because like people can just go to retreat and just like up and down, but the same shit comes up. And then they're not paying attention to the maneuvers within the maneuver and so different routings that could take. Then you just be scanning your body for God knows why. Yeah. And I think even even when we talk about like resting and recognizing it as being like, oh, do nothing, or like no maneuver, but that's a maneuver too. You make a decision to rest and recognize. And I would even say that Tyson says something really interesting about how like resting, which is in my opinion, is the fitness to be with whatever is rising. It takes fitness, and the recognition is the lucidity in which you can recognize your patterns. But Tyson said, like, actually, in terms of fitness, realization fitness and physical fitness, the similarity is that you have a max effort lift, and that max effort lift is actually resting. It sounds paradoxical, but it's actually not if you know what we're talking about here. Because when resting merges with recognition and you sustain that attention into a singularity, you just practicing that's the ultimate maneuver of no maneuver, practicing enlightenment. You see Buddha nature all the time. We're trying to see Buddha nature all the time. It's just contact in itself, or like as Albert said, the sheer fact of presence, knowing in itself. That's a maneuver too, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
But I think like what could be helpful of this week when we break down and have language, like precise languaging around all these maneuvers, it comes like, oh, I think I'm using these terms prematurely. That could be one realization. Because when actually like we if we don't have precise languaging, we can say, oh, just rest. Like, oh, I'm resting. Or
Mm.
like,
Yeah,
are you
yeah. People,
resting?
yeah. It's so funny because once I started talking about resting, recognizing, people just send me messages. They're like, "Is resting and recognizing really enough? I've been doing resting and recognizing. It's so easy." But the degree in which you can rest and recognize is the difference between like a Buddha and a sentient being. So, but then within that rest and recognition, you can break it down to so many different fractals and maneuvers within maneuvers and routings within routings. And they're just to be
It's
really
almost like in
the
some ways you
language.
say like just walk on water. Just walk on water. Go there and walk on water. Just do that.
Yeah, just be here now. Just be here now. Just watch your breath. Yeah. Even when, like you said about the breath, right? It's like, oh yeah, what's your maneuver? Yeah, the breath. But what are you doing with the breath?
Yeah, it's like someone like can just like go to failure on anything blindly, but you could also
Yeah, I got a max effort lift today. You just fell.
just like max
Bad
out all the
form.
time, and it will get you somewhere, especially if you have like a lot of recovery capacity and you're like youthful and like unlimited recovery capacity. You can just throw yourself at the wall repeatedly and get kind of somewhere. Or you can like meticulously, like strategically string out intentional exertions over a long period of time and learn and understand the process of development and like a fruition of or of a momentum of training, and then understand the training cycles and like have waves and waves of expression. And those are two very different experiences, but they're both exertion. And so it's like just like rest and recognize, you like, yeah, you, I mean, everyone can like rest, but are you really resting?
Yeah. What if you train to failure, but you never take in a full breath, or you never brace your core, or you don't get enough rest between the sets of failure? Like all the ways in which you're training to failure, that nuance is consequential. But most of the time we navigate that unaware.
Or you could be like Jace. What if you think what you think is failure is not failure?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I
And your
just need to
failure
look
is
like
actually
just need to look like I'm better
50%.
than others. Yeah.
What if you're psyching yourself out and call that failure?
Yeah. I just want to lounge.
But so many juicy details. I would say let's break out into 3 rooms and we can take this conversation not just between the mentors and the instructors here, but also everybody. Let's chime in and really see how it's going for us. So we have 3 rooms. Room number 1 will be Jace and Frank. Room number 2 will be Albert and Taylor. Room number 3 will be Tom and me. So please pick your room, or whatever room you feel like you want to get to know the instructors better, or just kind of like interested in that. So let's on there and meet back here in about 35 minutes. Okay?